Be honest, when was the last time you laughed at home? Wouldn't you love the chance to see live comedy? Great news! October 1st to October 4th, we've got Plano Virtual Comedy Festival. Live comedy from the comfort of your own home. We've got stand-ups from Los Angeles to New York, from Canada to Malaysia, from Conan to NBC to Fox. And on Zoom, you'll have a front row seat to every show all weekend. Head to PlanoComedyFestival.com to get yourself a weekend of hilarious comedy straight through your computer via Zoom. Plano Virtual Comedy Festival. Go to PlanoComedyFestival.com for more information. Get your tickets discounted when you buy before the end of September. Again, go to www.PlanoComedyFestival.com for tickets, lineup, and schedules. Bring the laughter back into your household. PlanoComedyFestival.com for all of your festing at home comedy needs. MediaTek Institute is a proud sponsor of the Plano Comedy Festival.
Actually gonna let Sue the host of this episode.
Okay. Well, then put the headset on.
I can't get him to wear the headset. He's a cat.
If you're gonna commit to you can't. you gotta have a miniature cat headset.
Oh, I ran out of time to make it. Oh, I hear those blues are calling. It's time for the Frazier and Frazier podcast. Welcome. Hello. It's I, your host, Adam Frazier. Mm-hmm. And with me is Wes Corwin.
Woo. Yep, this guy. All day.
Yeah, this guy.
This guy.
So today we're talking about season 1, episode 15 of Frasier. You can't tell a crook by his cover.
You can't tell a crook by his cover.
So before we get into this, I'm curious how. I mean, well, I don't know how we're even talking about the show anymore. So in this episode, Frasier is tasked with seeking out which 3 of Martin's friends is an ex-criminal.
At a poker night, he has 2 friends that are cops. One is an ex-con. And Frasier, being very confident in his ability to intuit, is challenged with who is the crook.
And I'm curious as a first time watcher for Frasier if you managed to guess correctly the who was the crook.
So now, if I were in a TV writing mindset, I will admit I did get it wrong. My first thought. And immediately afterwards, I was like, well, the only one that's spoken to another character is that. Of course, that would be the crook, if I was thinking right. Instead, I was thinking about the twist. I thought it would go for the entire length of the episode, was who. I thought we'd milk this thing. So I thought the obvious twist was either... I had 2 guesses, both of which were equally wrong. At first I thought Linda, because the whole gender thing that Frasier himself points out. And then I thought... like if it were to go the whole episode, the real twist would be that none of them had did time, that Martin had actually been in prison for a very brief stint, and that would be like mind-blowing.
Martin was the lowest killer.
Yeah, wouldn't it? He'd be solving his own murder. That would be wild. But naturally it was Jimmy, which is something where when you know it's going to end when you know the mystery is going to end at the 9-minute mark and we have a whole back half story, it's like, yeah, because he hung out with Daphne for a little bit, so they're going to have a whole thing at the end. And
yeah, it's interesting you bring. I hadn't thought of that. Like, it would be kind of interesting if they kind of milked it for a little bit longer, the mystery of who was the criminal, and it sort of turned into more of a mystery episode.
Exactly.
But we didn't get that.
No. And I mean, they did kind of shrink it down.
We got more Frasier and Niall shenanigans.
And I love my fair share of Frasier and Niall shenanigans. But I did think, I was like, oh man, it's going to go this whole thing. And then it's going to get to... They basically did in the first half where he takes them to the accusing parlor to accuse one of them of being a crook. And does the whole... But it didn't quite... It ended quickly. And then the back half was Frasier and Niall shenanigans, which was very fun.
Yeah, I feel like they maybe wrote the part where they figure out who the criminal is, and then they realize they didn't have enough
Just didn't have
dialogue for an entire episode
to get all the way
they
there.
Just had to kind of pad it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So the episode it starts off. Frazier's giving a tour to Martin of the studio where Frazier works.
Mm-hmm.
Touching all the different instruments and radio equipment. Roz comes in, and she was unfortunately the victim of a scam. Some guy, she lent money to some guy who was apparently trying to get to the Australian consulate.
Mm-hmm.
In Seattle?
This homeless Australian man, he's a tourist, he lost his wallet, he needs $10 so he can get to the consulate. Oh man, but there is no Australian consulate in Seattle, reveals Martin. Apparently,
Martin points out.
This guy has been scamming people for long enough that Martin, even though he's retired, is very familiar with how this whole guy's MO. And I looked it up. There is not an Australian consulate in Seattle to this day.
You looked that up?
Yeah, there are 7 Australian...
I looked stuff up about this episode, too. That wasn't one of them.
There are 7 Australian consulates: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Honolulu, Houston, and Washington, D.C. No Australian consulate in Seattle.
Well, maybe one day.
There's a consulate of France, Canada, and Norway, but it's an honorary consulate of Norway, so I don't know if that matters. Well, I don't know the difference.
Why wouldn't the scammer pick a consulate that was actually in Seattle? That's kind of a risky move, picking a consulate that isn't actually in Seattle, just in case the person you were dealing with actually knew that.
This is 1994. I feel like part of it. I feel like if it was something where somebody like if you're scamming, like, oh, you know, I've been to the I need to get to the Peruvian consulate. First of all, I think Australian is one of those accents that anybody can fake, and Americans can't be like that. You're doing like a Crocodile Dundee instead of like a real.
Who said he was faking the accent? We didn't see this go down. He could have actually had an Australian accent.
Yeah. Do you think you think this is an Australian man that came to Seattle?
I think Roz got scammed by Crocodile Dundee.
I believe it. I believe Ben Hogan is out there scamming people to this day.
So this whole conversation about Roz getting scammed gets Frazier and Martin talking about how to spot a criminal. Who can spot a criminal? Frazier believes that because of his his insight into the human psychology, that he can spot a criminal just based on their behavior and their mannerisms without actually knowing if they are actually a criminal. Martin doesn't think so. Martin has street smarts. And he puts his street smarts against Frazier's book smarts.
$5 on the line.
It's not a big bet. It's a pretty low stakes bet. But I guess, assuming he was planning on having these people over anyway, I guess that kind of makes sense. So Martin tells Frazier that he's going to have some buddies over for poker night. And one of them is a ex-con, the other ones are cops. If he can guess which one is which, then he wins the $5. So that takes the story next scene. This episode's very short on sets. I think we've only got like 4 real locations to deal with.
We've got you're right. We got
the radio station. We got Frazier's apartment. We've
Cafe
got
Nervosa, and we've got the
and
pool
then we've
hall.
got it has a name, doesn't it?
Topaz Room.
The Topaz Room, yeah. It feels like a micro episode. It's very, very small, very skipped down.
Yes.
So Frazier is hosting Martin's poker night at his apartment.
Yes.
They break out. I don't think it's the same table that they normally have. They're not just playing on the regular table that Frazier has in his dining room.
No.
It's like it's an actual poker table.
Frazier presumably has an erotic African poker table, much like he has erotic African art in his bathroom, that he breaks out for company.
I guess, or they just have it crammed in like a closet somewhere, and they just break it out for these little these little get-togethers. So it's three people. It's three people. It's what are their names?
Jimmy.
It's Jimmy,
Linda, and Frank.
Right. So Frazier has to figure out which one of these people is a former con,
a hardened criminal.
Right, and he gets going pretty much right out of the gate. Jimmy makes a comment about the size of Frazier's living room.
It's about 2,000 square feet, which he just guesses out of the blue.
Yeah, he eyeballed it. So this, of course, immediately gets Frazier thinking, oh, this guy, he noticed the space. He must have spent a long time in sort of a confined area, to which they, retort, oh, you've seen his apartment. So I think the rules are that none of them he can ask them questions, none of them directly about, like, if you're a criminal, but they all have to answer the questions honestly.
Yes.
So those are the rules, and I think it's Linda is the next person he accuses.
Right, because Daphne leaves, and Frank says, "Wow, she's attractive," and then Linda says, "She is attractive," and Frazier insinuates that because Linda might be able to acknowledge a same-sex attraction to Daphne, that she must be prison gay. He doesn't say it in so many words.
There's no other explanation.
That is about what she said. That's about where he ends up.
Yeah, and Martin calls him a jackass for this.
Yes, of course. Yes.
We cut to, doesn't it cut to like a little bit later or something? Yeah, it's a time lapse. And we cut to, at the end of the poker game, Linda, I think, won all the money. So they all, Frazier gathers them all around, and and he's going to make his accusation. We're going to find out who the actual criminal is, and of course he guesses. First he guesses Frank. And the reason, which is incorrect.
It is.
He's a highly decorated police officer.
Right.
His reasoning for Frank is just because it was sort of a stereotype. He basically he has the temper, loner, bit unsocial, which I think Frank takes a little harshly. So of course, but that's not correct. So then he next accuses Linda, again, like you said, because he assumes Martin would assume that the criminal is naturally a man. So he accuses Linda. It's not Linda, as it turns out. It is Jimmy.
It is Jimmy.
Who, according to IMDb trivia, apparently this should have been an easy one for Frazier because, Jimmy's the only one who has a beard. And police officers in Seattle, as like most of U.S. law enforcement agencies, don't allow officers to grow beards. So that might have been a clue. He could have been an ex-cop, I guess. You never know.
Could have been a previous. Why hasn't Martin grown out the beard now that he's allowed to?
I don't know. I don't think John Mahoney would look good. Maybe there's a picture somewhere on the internet of John Mahoney with beard.
Let's look that up.
We can both look it up because no, he does look good in the beard.
He looks great in the beard. Look at that.
He looks very good.
Look at that.
Very dashing.
Yeah, that's pretty stylish right there.
I was wrong. He can pull any type of facial hair off.
Killing it.
So of course Frazier loses the bet. The friends leave, and it's revealed that Daphne, her and Jimmy had an interaction at some point during the poker game. So it's revealed after they leave that Daphne set up a date with Jimmy.
Yes, John Mahoney is English.
Daphne did.
I'm sorry.
Yes, he grew up in Manchester, which is where Daphne in the show is from.
Does he have an English accent?
No.
No? Okay, I'm sorry.
So.
I'm sorry, go on.
I think he was just born there.
Oh, okay. I was hoping he had like
a long time.
I was hoping he had like a Tom Holland thing going on where he just has a flawless American accent.
You thought he was Spider-Man?
Yeah. He was in Spider-Man. He was Spider-Man. He was yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
So yes, Daphne is saying like I'm gonna go on this date, and then Martin is like I forbid it, and then Frasier's like I say she goes, and then she's like it's stupid you guys are arguing whether or not I can go because I have free will and I'm gonna go to my room, and then she goes down a hallway, and then Frasier says that would have been a very dramatic exit if she went down the right hallway, and then she slowly walks over to the other hallway.
Yeah, I caught that. Did you notice that like before they pointed it out? I don't know if you've gotten a sense of the layout of the Frazier apartment.
I know that that's the way to Frasier's room, and
Martin's, I believe.
Yeah, but I don't know if we've established where Daphne's room is before this joke. Probably, but I'm not sure.
I think they have.
Okay.
I think she said she's going to her room, and then she walks off in the direction. It's the doorway behind where the kitchen is. It also apparently used to be Frasier's study. I can't remember if I talked about this yet on the podcast. I think I probably have, but they talk about at one point. I think it's the very first episode when Daphne moves in. She's going to take his old study. And we see Daphne's room later on in the series, and she has a bathroom. Did his study
Frasier's study had a bathroom
beforehand?
the entire time.
Okay.
It's not a study if it doesn't have a bathroom.
Okay, I guess it's not a stretch.
Yeah.
We do that, and we do that scene. And then we cut to later. It's Cafe Nervosa. It's Frasier and Niles having some coffee. They both order a decaf latte with skim milk. The waiter calls it a gutless wonder.
Not because they're gutless. And Niles makes a comment, for a man living in a van with a van, he's playing fast and loose with his tips.
Did he say living in a van?
I mean,
driving a van.
Driving a van, probably driving a van. Let's see, Niles.
A man who drives a van. That'd be sad if he was living in his van.
Yeah, if he was a barista living in his van, that would be punching down, Niles.
Yes. So Frasier, they talk about. I think Niles talks about. He talks about Maris for one.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the whole. They're talking about the night before the bet that he made with Martin. Niles says, "I must tell you, the picture of you trying to make conversation with Dad's blue-collar cronies all evening is priceless. When I told Maris about it, it was all she could do to keep her eyes from dancing."
Is it
so?
Yeah, is Maris catatonic? I know.
I mean, the idea is that she's not capable of a lot of, she's physical, she's very rigid, I think, is
she
the
gets
idea.
Exhausted very quickly, yes.
Exactly. So they eventually get to the part where Frasier reveals to Niles that Daphne is going to go on a date with this Jimmy fellow. Which we've already, of course, gotten hints that Niles is in love with Daphne. So he is pretty upset by this. The idea that there's an ex-criminal going out with Daphne. And it pretty much sets them off. There's a great line where Frasier tries to get him to calm down. Downey says, "Oh, Niles, just sit down, relax. For God's sakes, you're being irrational." And Niles says, "Don't you dare call me irrational. You know that makes me crazy."
Yeah. It's a good line.
I like that.
It's a solid line.
So the two decide that they are going to go to the Topaz room, which is where Jimmy is said to be taking Daphne.
At first, Niles says, "I'm going to the Topaz room," and Frasier is like, "You're going to make a fool of yourself. I will not participate in this." And then when he reveals the name of the venue, the barista says, "Oh, I thought the cops shut that place down after the last shooting." And then Frasier says, "I'll drive," and then they leave.
It's like that. There isn't even a beat.
No, absolutely not.
So we cut to the Topaz room. It is Daphne. She's playing with a bunch of men, bunch of young,
bunch of roughnecks.
Surly, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
She's hustling basically at pool.
Yes.
Or as they call it in England, snooker, I believe.
I believe you're. I don't know if you're correct, actually.
So yeah, so it's revealed to us Daphne. She is psychic. She used to be on a television show, and not only that, she also is apparently a world-class pool player.
She's a scratch pool player. She is amazing.
She's just a Renaissance woman.
Mm-hmm.
So she destroys these guys at pool and takes all their money.
All of it.
She walks out. She walks into the back of the Topaz room. She goes to the bathroom, whatever. Frazier and Niles come in, missing her. They immediately go up to the bartender, asking where she is, and the bartender makes a comment. She came in with Jimmy, but Jimmy was getting fresh with her, so she kicked him to the curb.
Put him in a hammerlock.
Yeah, and good riddance too. The guy was no good. I knew it the first time I saw him. You can always tell.
And then Frazier goes,
Yeah. Because Frazier didn't know. Frazier couldn't spot it, but this guy, this Joe Schmo could.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, street smarts beats out book smarts in this episode. So Frazier and Niles, I think they're talking about leaving. Now that they know that, I guess Daphne's okay.
Yes, now that she presumably has control, putting people in hammerlocks, which is where you put someone's arm behind their own back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decide they're gonna get out of there. And when Frazier bumps into Rocco, although I don't think do they name him in the show? I don't remember. It says Rocco in the script, but he's a guy who's playing pool at one of the pool tables. Frazier meshes up his shot.
I don't believe there's a line where we say his name. I believe he's just like a toughie. He's just a rough customer that as Frazier and Niles make moves to leave without Daphne noticing them, they bump this guy in the middle of his shot, and he says, "You messed up my shot. I had $200 riding on that shot." And they apologize, but these guys start to escalate things and want to assault Frazier and Niles.
Real quick, I want to point out that Rocco is played by it's Robert Miano. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who was on an episode of DS9.
Well, there you go. Isn't that how
he played a holographic gangster?
That fits.
Who took over a
yeah.
Who took over a casino? They do a whole Ocean's 11 type heist. It's a great episode. So I just wanted to point that out.
Sure. I do want to.
Yeah, he based.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say my favorite. Let's see. I think I'm correct. My favorite gangster to play in a Star Trek episode was Lawrence Tierney, who was in the one where Picard is a hard-boiled detective.
Right, Dixon Hill.
Yeah, I loved him in Tough Guys Don't Dance. That's the only Lawrence Tierney film I've seen.
Lawrence is I'm wondering if he's who I think.
He was Reservoir. He was Reservoir Dogs, but I haven't seen it. I've only seen Tough Guys.
Right. Yeah. No, he's great.
Yeah.
I think that was one. I think that was actually one of the he's also in an episode of DS9 too, Lawrence Tierney, and I think it was like one of the last things he did before he died, unfortunately.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Lawrence Tierney, fantastic actor.
Shot at his nephew.
Not in any episodes of Frasier.
While we're talking about crooks, he during the filming of Reservoir Dogs, he took a gun and shot at his nephew in a drunken rage, and was arrested and bailed.
Okay.
Great. So
he had his demons.
In 1973, he was stabbed in a bar fight in West Manhattan. 1958, he was arrested for fighting two policemen outside of a Manhattan bar. He's been arrested 6 times in California and 5 in New York on similar fighting cop charges. Served a 90-day sentence for breaking a New York college student's jaw. That year, he was sent to a mental hospital after being found disheveled in a church. He was arrested for assault and battery in 1953. Between 1944 and 1951, he was arrested over 12 times for brawling, frequently for drunkenness. He was jailed for brawling 1947, 1949, drunkenness 1949, 1950. Here we go. During a live stream held on May 5th, 2020, by Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander, it was revealed that during his short time on set, while playing Elaine's father on Seinfeld, Tierney stole a large butcher knife from the craft services table and held it under a trench coat laying over his shoulder. He then attempted to walk away.
I remember hearing that, yeah. I know what you were talking about.
Lawrence Tierney's the best. Anyway, let's talk about Frasier.
He had his demons, but he's a fantastic actor.
He's a fantastic actor. Adam, you're getting me off track. I'd rather talk about Frasier.
Oh, I'm getting you off track.
I'm getting yes, absolutely.
So yeah, Rocco says that he's going to challenge them. He's challenging them to pool in order, so he doesn't beat them up. They have to beat him at pool, or else they get beat up. If they beat him, Frazier Niles, then he forgets about the $200. There's a line I want to talk about real quick.
Oh, okay.
Niles, they're trying to get out of this whole situation. So Niles says, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go put another quarter in the meter. Rocco replies, the meters don't run at night, neither do you. So Niles replies, that was rather amusing play on words. You're a regular George S. Kaufman. Mm-hmm. We must really tell our friends about this. So I had to look up George S. Kaufman.
I believe
he's a playwright.
He is a playwright. I believe he's been referenced in previous episodes of Seinfeld.
Of Seinfeld or Frasier?
Oh, excuse me, of Frasier. I'm mixing up shows. I'm thinking about Lawrence Tierney.
You're still on that.
I'm still thinking about it.
So here's the thing. Well, because I looked up one of his quotes. And just tell me if this sounds familiar. So this was apparently in response to popular singer Eddie Fisher appearing on this show, This Is Show Business, told Kaufman that women refused to date him because he looked so young. So George replied, Mr. Fisher, on Mount Wilson, there is a telescope that can magnify the most distant stars up to 24 times the magnification of any previous telescope. This remarkable instrument was unsurpassed in the world of astronomy until the construction of the Mount Palomar telescope, an even more remarkable instrument magnification. Owing to advances and improvements in optical technology, it is capable of magnifying the stars to 4 times the magnification and resolution of the Mount Wilson telescope. Mr. Fisher, if I could somehow put the Mount Wilson's telescope inside the Mount Palomar telescope, you still wouldn't be able to detect my interest in your problem. This is a direct rip, or not. Frasier rips this same line off a couple episodes ago.
Insane.
I think if it was the guy calling in about sun pumps, I think. Mm-hmm. Or no, it wasn't the sun pumps guy. It was the guy.
It was the guy about the boat. Right. He and his wife
he wanted to name the boat something. His wife wanted to name the boat something.
And Frasier just apparently Frasier joke thief stealing George F. Kaufman material. What a
shameful.
Should be disgusted with himself.
So Daphne, being the strongest pool player at this pool hall, she basically challenges. I think she takes the place of Frazier Niles. She's going to duke it out with Rocco at pool. She has to sink 6 balls in one shot, and if she does that, then the bet's off. Frazier, Niles, Daphne, they all walk free.
At first, she wants 5 balls, and she puts 5 balls in it's a trick shot. It's a thing that she knows she can do. And at the last second, Rocco says, let's make it interesting. Let's go 6 balls. And that's a rule. If you're like a criminal, you have to agree if somebody says, that's the way Daphne got him to agree with the thing originally, was like, let's make it interesting. If I don't make these 5 balls, you get to beat up these guys. And then he said, let's make it interesting, which it already was interesting. But he was like,
right.
Adding
one more ball doesn't necessarily make it that much more interesting.
They don't,
but he's saying,
yeah, they don't up the stakes from there. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna make it harder for you, for no reason, because whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
and I believe it's that one ball that he adds that she doesn't sink that shot. So she very impressively she sinks all 5 balls into the pool holes. Is that what they're called? Pool holes, right?
Pool bowls. Yes.
Holes, like the pockets.
Are they? I don't think that's correct.
I think that sounds right.
Okay, you're right. Pool. I believe they're
pool pockets.
Pool pockets.
She sinks them. She sinks all 5 balls except for the last one. And there's like a sort of the whole moment slows down. It's all in slow-mo. So as soon as it becomes obvious that the last ball isn't going to go in, she tells Frazier and Miles to run. They run out the door, lock the rest of the people inside of the Topaz room, and that's presumably they never got out, which is a real
presumably,
shame.
That bartender died in there, which was a shame because he had a great sense of who was good and who was evil. Now he's stuck in there forever.
So that's the episode. It's not. It felt like it flew by.
It's a quick one.
I guess that's just because it's a little bite-sized Frasier for you. Wes, any thoughts? Any jokes that you liked? What did you think of this episode?
Let me think. There were a couple of jokes that I thought were fun. There was a quick one right before the very first commercial where Frazier goes on a long, verbose monologue where he says, "I think you're underestimating what truffles are to pigs. So are these charlatans and pettifoggers to my mental acuity." And then as Roz looks at Martin says, "We didn't know better back then. His mother smoked during pregnancy," which is a pretty dark joke, and I thought it was fun. I also
there's a note on the IMDb trivia page. It's funny that you mentioned that line. There's a note on the IMDb trivia page. God. So yeah, Frazier says that line. I can't talk. What truffles are to pigs, so are the charlatans and pettifoggers of my mental acuity. So the trivia page points out that on the season 1 DVD, I don't know who keeps up the Frasier the Frasier trivia page on IMDb, but they apparently were keen enough to notice that the closed captioning on the DVD says "what troubles are to pigs," which of course makes no sense.
No sense whatsoever. There was another laugh that I liked, and again, it was something that was funny. I noticed what the studio audience laughs at. They really enjoyed the whole like, oh man, like Linda saying, "Oh, she's hot," and then Frazier says, "So you like women, do you?" And that got a
they went crazy.
They went wild for that joke.
I mean, it was good. It was
funny.
Frazier being kind of a jackass.
You find her attractive, do you? And then big laugh. And I appreciate that they turned it around. Like they didn't stick in the like Martin called him out for being a dumb asshole in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if this has any place in this podcast episode. There was a study that Ben Carson tried to cite back in 2016 about how prisoners that go in straight come out gay. And that proves that homosexuality is a choice. But that's not what the study showed.
It doesn't show the exact opposite.
It doesn't show much of anything. It's just a weird study where someone from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, a criminal justice professor, interviewed people about whether or not their sexuality changed while they were in prison. 142 people, 24 of them.
Was this both male and female?
No, these are dudes. These are all gentlemen. 18 changed from straight to bisexual. 3 changed from bisexual to straight, so they stopped being into men. 1 changed from bisexual to gay. 1 changed from gay to bisexual. And 1 changed from gay to straight. Never again. Never again after being in prison with men. 118 had their sexuality unaffected. I don't know if this is a good study or even a good belief to have.
Yeah, it's. I mean, prisons are weird, man, and we need to change how they are operated.
Yeah, I'm knocking my producer over here. You have beliefs about this, about the industrial prison complex. Yep, she sure does. Well, that's gonna do it for this podcast.
Real quick, we're gonna talk about our next episode, the show where Lilith comes back.
I noticed it came up in my Hulu, the episode that Lilith, the fabled Lilith, from Cheers, from the marriage that Frasier had on Cheers. It's crazy. This is
played by B.B. Newworth. Yeah, so Lilith visits Frasier in Seattle, wondering if there's any chance of reconciliation. So. This is Lilith, Frasier's ex-wife from Cheers, coming back to Seattle. This is the first time we're seeing on this show, and then apparently there's gonna be some drama. There's gonna be some adult stuff, words happening.
It's wild. You might recall if you're a Cheers head, if you're one of them Cheers heads. That she went down into an undersea tank with a professor who turns out had the claustrophobia. I've never seen Cheers, but I did read about it.
I haven't seen that episode.
It's a one. I can't comment on it because I've never seen it.
All right, well that's gonna about do it for the Frasier on Frasier podcast. I've been your host, Adam Frasier. Wes Corwin has been with me.
Yep.
Good night, everybody. The Frasier on Frasier podcast wishes to thank KCL780.net for providing episode transcripts and Ronald O'Connell for providing our theme song, Frasier MIDI.